Oh, okay. Let's see here. Now I've lost. Okay. All right. Again, good morning, everyone. I apologize for the delay in getting started. We had a little maybe confusion on the meeting link this morning. All year it has gone really well, except for today. I think we might have a little confusion on meeting links. So if you guys get messages from anybody that they're in a different meeting link, please drop it in the chat and we'll get them over to the right meeting. But again, thank you for joining me this morning for our last quarterly call of the year. I know everyone is super busy with end of the year closings and things like that, getting these children ready for summer. So I do appreciate your time. This morning we do have Miranda Mead from the coordinated school health team here at the department who's going to talk about summer feeding. So I will push that over to her in just a minute. But before we get started, at the state of Tennessee, we do not currently permit the use of generated AI tools such as Otter for meetings. If you do start an AI tool, you will be dismissed from the meeting, and any information we share here is either recorded by the department and then posted. And so we just appreciate that you abide by our stand to not use AI tools at this time. All right. So during our time together, before we start talking about homeless liaison responsibilities, like I just said, we're going to look at summer feeding, and that's going to be presented by the department's coordinated school health team, Randa Mead. So I'm going to let her speak about that. Then we'll jump back into the homeless contact and job responsibilities. We'll look at how to check your data for EIS to make sure all that's going to align. Then we'll look at McKinney-Vento re-verification and dispute resolution. We'll wrap up with a few summer school resources and supports, and then we'll talk about from the field, get some feedback from you guys, some reminders, more resources, and of course, time for questions. So again, thanks for joining, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Randa so she can talk about summer feeding.
Hey everyone, good morning. I'm Randa Mead. I'm the Senior Compliance and Data Manager with the School Nutrition Program. I just want to double check that you can hear me okay. Okay, I've been having microphone issues since our computers updated to the new Windows, so I'm like ever hesitant of, oh no, is it working? So glad it's working today. So yes, as Vanessa said, I'm here to talk about summer feeding. Within my work with the school nutrition team, I am our lead for what's called the seamless summer option, as well as doing data and compliance, but I'm going to be talking about summer feeding in a more broad manner. So first off, what is summer feeding? So USDA offers summer nutrition meals, which they call sun meals, which allows kids of all ages to eat meals and snacks at no cost during the summer at schools, parks, and other neighborhood locations. Sun meals provides nutritious meals for kids and teens during the summer months when school is out. Every child aged 18 and under can enjoy sun meals, and some rural communities offer sun meals to go, which is what we refer to as our non-congregate feeding. I'll be talking about that a little bit more on the next couple of slides as well. So why is summer feeding important? Well, we know that during the school year, a lot of our kiddos rely on their school meals, and that's sometimes the only food they get during the day. So we know that when school is out, hunger doesn't stop. And so it's really important to be able to provide summer meals to our kids in need. So in Tennessee, we have the Seamless Summer Option and the Summer Food Service Program. The Seamless Summer Option is a continuation of the National School Lunch Program and School Breakfast Program. It can only be operated by school food authorities. So those are organizations that are already operating the National School Lunch Program. So you all as homeless liaisons are most likely familiar with your local school nutrition teams and are working with them to help directly certify students for free meals via their homeless categorizations. And the Seamless Summer Option is administered by the Tennessee Department of Education. In Tennessee, We also have the summer food service program. So this can be operated by SFAs, so people already operating National School Lunch, community organizations, and nonprofit organizations. So sponsors for SFSP can be churches, local governments, the YMCA, the Boys and Girls Club. There's more flexibility with who can operate the summer food service program. And it is administered by the Tennessee Department of Human Services. So just as a little overview for the structure of summer feeding, you have state agencies, sponsors, and sites. So state agencies, which is the role that I'm in, we recruit sponsors and publicize sites. We provide training and technical assistance to our sponsors. We provide monitoring and oversight at the sites. And then we process claims and distribute reimbursement to sponsors. That's how they get paid for the meals that they have served. Sponsors are responsible for recruiting sites and providing them with training and technical assistance. They also monitor their sites. They report meal counts and submit the claims for reimbursement to state agencies and conduct outreach to families and the community. So they are like, hey, we have the summer feeding site. You should come get some meals. And then we have sites. The sites are where the kids actually are. Sites are where we feed and supervise the kids. They have to keep accurate counts of the number of kids who are served a meal, maintain a safe environment, and then also conduct outreach to actually draw the kids into the sites to participate. So a little bit more on summer feeding sites. The site is where the food is consumed by the child or where the food is distributed for off-site consumption and meal counts are taken. So we have both congregate and non-congregate meal service. Congregate meal service is food service where the meals are provided to children and they're consumed on site in a supervised setting. Historically, all of our summer feeding programs were congregate meal services. But with COVID, we had a lot of waivers and realized that we could successfully provide meals to kids in a non-congregate manner. And that has now been codified and is allowed through the USDA. So we also have non-congregate meal service, which is food service where meals are provided for children to be consumed off-site, and they are only allowed to do non-congregate if the site is designated as rural. And your school nutrition director is your best resource for collaboration and finding summer feeding sites. So I would say most of our school nutrition programs across the state are operating some sort of summer feeding to some extent. And if they are not operating, they are still required to advertise and let the community know where summer feeding sites can be found. So if you aren't sure about what summer feeding looks like in your school or your district or your community, I highly recommend that you reach out and work with your school nutrition director. This is just the meals that can actually be served. So USDA allows one or meal type per child per day, and then you can have a combination of 2 meals. So you can serve breakfast and lunch, breakfast and snack, breakfast and supper, lunch and snack, snack and supper. The 2 that you can't serve together are lunch and supper because they have the same meal pattern and reimbursement rates. So each child can only get 1 breakfast a day. So if there's multiple programs going on or something like that, we wouldn't want the child to get a breakfast at site A and then hop over to site B and also get breakfast. This is just some overview information of the type of sites that we have. The big thing is most of our sites, we encourage them to be open, which means that meals are served on a first come, first served basis. And all children age 18 and under are eligible to receive a free meal at that specific site. The other thing I wanted to talk about is area eligibility, and there's a lot of information and data on this slide that's not quite pertinent to you, but I did want you to just be aware of the requirements to establish a summer feeding site, because if you are in a district that that has low free and reduced eligibility, it may be harder to establish a summer feeding site. So ultimately, we can use school level data. So if at least 50% of students enrolled in that school are eligible for free or reduced price meals, that can be used to establish a summer feeding site. And anything in the attendance area of that school. So we can qualify potentially other schools, parks, that sort of thing, using school level data. We also have the option to use census data. And census data is a little bit more strict in that the specific address in and of itself has to be eligible based on the map in order for us to use that data to establish a summer feeding site. This is just a little bit more information on using the census data. Again, it's not exactly pertinent to you, but I wanted you to have the information that you would need if you wanted to look at it. Then I wanted to provide some resources that you can utilize for sharing with your families. The USDA has a summer site finder, and it is linked here. So that website takes you to a listing of all of our summer feeding sites. We report those on a weekly basis to USDA, and they get updated on this map. USDA also has a national hunger hotline that is operated by Hunger Free America. And there's an English and a Spanish version that families could call to find meals closest to them. They can also text the number listed with a question or keyword, and they'll get an automated response with resources that are located near where they are. So that's a very high level view of how summer feeding works. Ultimately, we want to advertise our sites to our kids, especially our kiddos who might be struggling with homelessness, so that they can get those resources and meals in the summer that they would be getting during the school year. And I do have to hop off. But so if there's any questions for me at this time, I'm happy to answer them. If not, Vanessa has my contact information that she's going to share at the end.
Yeah, does anyone have any questions? You can unmute your line or drop it in the chat. Randa does have a commitment that she has to go for today, so she won't be able to stay for the whole meeting. But at the end, if you do have questions, I can field them over to her, or you can reach out to her directly. Here's her contact information. So, Randa, I appreciate you joining us today. It's always good to hear from other team members and what they're providing to students. I'm always concerned about children, making sure they're getting their food, because once they leave the school, sometimes it's their only meal. So I do appreciate it, and I hope you have a great rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. I'm happy to help.
All right. So again, if you have any questions at the end, we can take those as well. We'll go ahead and move on to the McKinney-Vento Homeless Liaison contact and responsibilities. I covered this stuff last year, but I just wanted to make sure maybe we have some new homeless liaisons on, or just a refresher, making sure that you know that your contact information or the person that you want to receive information about homeless programming is in the CFA. Now, I know most of the time I hear from the divisional coordinators or other team members that they can put one person in the contact list for other programs, but for homeless programming, you can put more than one person. So that this person can, or these person will be able to get emails about homeless programming, about supported calls, anything like that. If there is a main person that you just want to get everything and then they feed it out, that's fine as well. But make sure that you're going into ePlan, looking in the contacts in ePlan, go to your organization address book and see who is the homeless liaison contact. Again, I can't highly encourage you enough. If you're not getting emails from me, it's because you're not in this list, and this is how I pull all of the people that will be getting emails from me directly. And then also, second option for getting your contact information is to go to the funding and look on the consolidated funding page and then navigate to the contacts page. This is how I use and find contacts is directly through going to the CFA. So again, you can find the contacts and then the homeless liaison, and that'll show you who is exactly listed. Please be sure that you have a phone number in there. A lot of times, sometimes, well, I wouldn't say a lot. Sometimes I go in and look for the homeless liaison specifically directly for that LEA, and then all I get is an email or nothing and just the name. And so I have to go and hunt for that phone number to call the district so that I can talk to the homeless liaison. There might be an issue that has arose that I need to talk to them specifically. It's not a mass email. So please ensure that all that information is there. I do not use that information after hours. And so it's just really during business hours that we can communicate about what's going on with your programming if needed. So responsibilities at the end of the year, it's a great time to revisit your job responsibilities. There's a lot of things that are on your plates. A lot of, even if you wear multiple hats, there's a lot of things that are not McKinney-Vento related. But there are specific things as a homeless liaison that you're responsible for under the McKinney-Vento Act. And so you want to make sure that you take a look at that to make sure that you are meeting those requirements. And then also that your job descriptions are also aligning with what is required through the federal law. So just take a few minutes again. I know that y'all are really busy and reading documents is probably not on the top of your to-do list, but take some time if you can. And then the homeless liaison toolkit will also give you some information and guidance on like your responsibilities as far as federally what you need to be doing. So again, looking at those responsibilities, annually, you need to review your data and your activities within the LEA. You want to be looking at your LEA homeless needs assessment, right? And you're like, what is a needs assessment? Basically, it's your surveys that you've sent out to your families. Maybe it is surveys you've sent out to your teachers, to your staff, to kind of get feedback about how homeless programming worked this year, what maybe didn't work, what you could do different, looking at, maybe you had some transportation needs that popped up, but you didn't know who to contact. And so it kind of became a small situation became a big situation. So really looking at what you've put out for the year and what maybe you could do differently or keep the same for next school year. Also making sure that your policies and procedures are still not creating barriers for the students that you are serving. Sometimes districts decide, oh, we're going to start doing this. And so they don't think that, oh, that's a barrier to the homeless programming. And so that is your job as a homeless liaison to make sure that you're keeping those barriers removed. And that way they can do immediate enrollment or whatever it is that is has been changed for that policy or procedure. And then you want to make sure that you are just looking at your LEA dispute process. So that way you know when that time comes how to go ahead and enact that dispute resolution process at the LEA level, that you know the time frame, what to provide to those families once you've determined that they're not McKinney-Vento. And so making sure that you understand that process so that, again, I'm here to support however I can. I will answer questions, but just make yourself familiar with that because this is the time of year where we start having those disputes arise. And of course, they're definitely going to come in the fall as well. So looking at your programming and funding, sometimes you're, as homeless liaison, sometimes you're not really familiar with your fiscal team. So if you don't know who your fiscal team is, make sure that you introduce yourself and you have a good working relationship with them. I know sometimes the fiscal team, the director of schools, or even your federal programs directors don't necessarily communicate what funding is available to your homeless programming. So make sure that you talk with them. You do have Title I Part A homeless set aside at minimum. So make sure you know how that money is being spent, what it's being obligated to, right? And make sure that you're looking at how much you have to support those students. Again, a lot of times homeless liaisons, they don't know that they have these funds and they don't have a say in what the funds are used for. So make sure you really work with them. There are two main buckets of funding for homeless programming. Like I said, Title I Part A homeless set aside. It's required by all schools that meet the Title I part of it. And then McKinney-Vento subgrant, which currently there are 21 LEAs who have that subgrant. And for those who would like to apply, it is currently open and will close on May 21st at 5 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Eastern. So again, if you aren't aware of any of these pots of funding, or you are considering applying for the McKinney-Vento subgrant, sit down with your team, talk about it, figure out what you have to help support your programming and the students that you serve. Let's see. In order to access your e-plan, you can look at the e-plan homepage and click on the link, and you can see if you have access to user access to get into e-plan, to see what's going on. You can go look at anybody's CFA and look at their plans without having to log in. You just won't be able to make any changes or any kind of updates to the budget or narrative if you don't have permission to do so. But again, if you are curious to know what your counterparts are doing across over the next LEA, you can go in there and type in, for example, Sumner County, and then you can see their consolidated funding application and go into their homeless section and see how they are spending their homeless set-aside funding. Or you can even look at their McKinney-Vento subgrant. So those are all forward-facing so that everyone in true transparency can see what's going on throughout the state. All right, so FIR, again, many liaisons don't know about the FIRs, don't know how to complete them, but please, please, please talk with your finance director. Make sure that you guys are ready to complete that FIR. For reimbursements, they need to be done by June 30th of 2025. And then again, requests that do require documentation are entered by June 7th. And then the requests that are not required for documentation are June 14th. Again, this is not my forte first. This is going to be the fiscal team, but I do work with the fiscal team to help answer questions, to also just make sure that you guys understand that this is very important, and that until you get your FIRs completed at your level, any funding that's rolling over, whether it be in your subgrant or it be in your CFA, will not roll over into FY26 until the FIRs are complete. So you must make sure you're completing that. Again, it's probably not a task that you're doing, but you need to talk with somebody in your department to make sure that it is on the books to get done in a timely manner. It is a best practice to have your FIR submitted by August 1. So if you could work on that and get that to make sure that you're ready to do that, that is going to be just a good practice to kind of get in line with your homeless programming. The next big thing that we are looking at is the homeless immunization. It is going to open, as you see on the slide, Thursday, May 8th. You will have several months to complete that, but we wanted to shift that to while you guys were still in school, just in case you don't work over the summer. You can go ahead and get the information collected and then submitted. The report is going to be due in August, so you have time, but in case you want to get that off of your school list before you leave for the summer, it'll be open for you to do so. Any questions? All right, so here comes the fun part, making sure that your data is in. I don't know if any of you have heard, but our data coordinator guru, Trish Kelly, did retire in February. And so we are currently working to hire a new data coordinator. Whoever it is going to have big shoes to fill. As you all know, Trish was amazing with the data. And so we are hoping that whoever steps in will be able to keep us on track and get our information correctly to the U.S. Department of Education. Haley, yes, more guidance will come out about the homeless immunization report. I will have like a one-pager and everything specifically for the homeless immunization. All right, so it is important that at least once per month you use the homeless student list research query to check your data. Be sure that you download the data to an Excel or CVS file. You will identify homeless residency discrepancies by comparing the primary nighttime residence and the homeless student classification columns. Then you're going to identify students who transfer into the LEA or school by comparing the homeless student classification and the homeless earlier this year columns. Just to note, this is the same data that information that I provide in the mini data webinars, but I just wanted to again recap it for you for the end of the school year. If the research discrepancies are identified, enter the correction in SIS and restage your data to EIS. Corrections populate EIS the day after the data is restaged. I'm not sure. The whole thing just jumped ahead on me. I'm not sure what's happening. So in preparation of the end of the year reporting for the 2024-25 school year, LEA should review the homeless student data in EIS. This data is used not only for state reporting, but also for federal reporting. So you want to make sure this data is entered correctly. To check the data in EIS, log in as an LEA or your school user. First, you will select Data Reports, Research Queries. Next, you're going to select the Homeless Student List Research Query. Then select a school or all schools. And then last, select View Report. I provided a screenshot so you can see what it looks like when you go onto the web page. So let's first discuss no discrepancies. As you can see in the table below, there are no discrepancies. All homeless students have a primary nighttime residence code of 01 through 04. Show you right here. All homeless students are classified as yes. And the homeless earlier this year flag is also yes. And the homeless student classification is yes in subsequent enrollments, okay? So now let's take a look at a table that has several discrepancies. A student has been identified as doubled up, homeless nighttime resident code 02, but the student is not identified as homeless. So you see right here, they have an N. So they've not been coded as N. The homeless student classification is N. So that is going to be a discrepancy in what you've got homeless residency code, but then you have them coded as N. Two other students are identified as homeless. The homeless student classification is yes here, but the homeless nighttime residence is blank. So you see right here, they're yes, but it's blank here. And then you have one student who has 00 for the other code. So they've got the 00, but they're marked as yes for homeless student. And then last discrepancy is on row 4. The student was homeless in a prior enrollment during the school year. The homeless earlier this year flag is yes. But the student is not identified as homeless in the current enrollment. Homeless student notification in, right? And so that needs to all align to make sure that your data is properly coded. We want to make sure that we are catching these students so that not only are we ensuring that they're getting the supports and resources that they need, but you're also going to get the maximum support from state and federal levels. Again, if we're not reporting these numbers, then we will not be able to get the maximum amount of funding that we could possibly get. So it's super important that you are making sure that this is entered correctly. Okay, so it's super important in keeping your homeless data correct. Again, I just said that. Please ensure that you do not roll over any homeless primary nighttime residents or other homeless fields. SIS packages should not roll over primary nighttime residency or other homeless fields. So if for some reason your SIS packages is doing that, you need to reach out to the vendor so that they can have the put on the anti-rollover if there is that measure that can be added. And then if if you need further assistance, reach out to me currently until we get another Trish Kelly in place. I will try to field it to other people in the department if you have any questions, or hopefully I'll be able to answer it for you. But again, making sure that you're not rolling over the information as part of you re-verifying every year. It should be part of what you're doing for the fall to make sure you're coding them back into the system correctly. Any questions? Okay, so let's look at re-verification and dispute resolution. So I know I've talked to many of you recently on the phone about you're already starting a re-verification process and have questions about it. So let's kind of visit that a little bit. The McKinney-Vento Act requires that LEAs provide continuing enrollment and transportation for students during the duration of homelessness and for the remainder of the academic year in which families become permanently housed. Because of this, McKinney-Vento designation should be revisited at the end of each year and over the summer to ensure students are identified and have a smooth transition in the fall. So again, you're looking at it now, but you're also going to be looking at it throughout the summer to see if something has changed. Maybe the student became homeless, maybe they got housing the last 3 months of school, but then over the summer something happened and now they are back to being homeless. Or maybe they found something, they were without a home right when school got out, but over the summer they found housing, surprising. So again, checking with your families. Communication between the LEA and the parent is super important, so that the family knows, like, we are verifying, we are re-verifying, and I just wanted to let you know that in the fall, we will, if you have found housing, you will no longer be eligible for McKinney-Vento. So that family's not surprised. And I know that you guys do a good job with communicating with families, but just to remind them, like, hey, we do have to verify each year to ensure that you are still eligible to receive services. And then making sure that you're doing this with, that it's very sensitive for them, obviously, and you're doing it, behind closed doors so that not everyone in the school knows what's going on. Again, making sure you're keeping that privacy there for those families. If you don't already have this, I strongly stress the importance of sending a re-verification letter. I know a few of you said that you do some phone calls, but I highly recommend doing something that is either in your on your LEA website that you can just send out to someone, or your phone links, or however you guys do your communication, or just sending a simple paper copy home. But do an actual letter that a parent can actually sit down, look at the information, read it, clearly understand what's going on and what is being asked of them and what they need to provide. The best practice would be to help these families who may need to do a dispute. Maybe they feel that they are still eligible for services, but based on your knowledge and your information, they aren't. And so under the federal law, the family does have the right to dispute your decision at the LEA level. And so you want to make sure that you are making them aware of that. So when come fall, there's going to be fewer disruptions, and maybe the student's already going to be enrolled in their new school versus waiting until fall to like communicate, like, hey, by the way, you're not eligible. Now you have to go to a different school. Remember, if an LEA finds that a student is no longer eligible for services, the homeless liaison must inform the family of their right to dispute. And again, the student cannot be unenrolled. I get a lot and come fall, I get a lot of families that call upset that when they went to enroll in school, or when they went to the front office to, I guess, get documentation, they were told that they were no longer enrolled at the school because they didn't think they were McKinney-Vento eligible. That can't help you guys. You got to make sure your front office staff understand that they cannot unenroll a student until all of the steps through McKinney-Vento have been due process, and that the family has a right to appeal their McKinney-Vento status. So before fall starts, not only are you looking at immediate enrollment, but you're really hitting home that they can't unenroll a student. They have to communicate with you before they unenroll any McKinney-Vento student. I think that'll save everyone a lot of headache when it comes to to having to re-enroll and work with the parent. I believe so. You can see there's an end of the year verification letter that you can use. Again, it's an e-plan. You can tailor it to your needs. You don't have to use what we have, but it's highly recommended. And then, of course, again, if there's a question about the student continuing McKinney-Vento eligibility, you want to make sure that's addressed as soon as possible, and then get that dispute going. So again, if you say that maybe we are doing enrollment now and you decide the student is not eligible for McKinney-Vento right now, you can go ahead and start the dispute resolution process. So come the fall, the family is aware that they will have to enroll in the school that has been designated for wherever they are living. So I highly recommend, again, you look at all these resources that you have to support you for the dispute resolution. Again, you've seen these before. It's not any new information. The dispute resolution brief, and then, of course, the SEA dispute resolution sample form that you can also use for your LEA level disputes that you can tailor to what you need. Again, this is what I was talking about, making sure they're familiar with your process and what needs to happen, because the process does have a strict timeline that both you and the family parents need to abide by. The family only has a certain amount of time that they can appeal the LEA's decision. If they do not appeal that decision within that time frame, then the student is unenrolled, and there is no other way the family has a right to appeal that, right? So it's a very informing the parent of all their rights, as well as you knowing how many days are involved with all of this. Enrollment disputes. Again, disputes are over eligibility, school selection, or school enrollment. And they must be immediately enrolled while you're going through the dispute resolution process. So you also need to make sure, again, that the parent is aware of their rights. You're not just handing them the letter that the LEA has given them that says this is why you're not eligible for McKinney-Vento. Truly explain to them, like, this is, you have X amount of days. If you need me to help you pull any documents, if they need help copying any documents, under the federal law, you are required to help the family with getting any documentation they may need to support their reasoning for eligibility. So again, it's not just give them the document and say, here you go, figure it out on your own. It's really helping them through this process to make sure that they truly understand what's happening. And I say that because I do get calls from families sometimes who say, I've got this document. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't understand it. And so had the homeless liaison or whoever was responsible for that piece of it would have explained it to the parent, I think that they would have had a better understanding of what she needed to do in order to go through with this dispute. So any questions? All right, we just have a few more slides. We're going to just quickly, of course, Randa did her summer feeding, and this kind of plays a little bit into information for your summer schools. Many of you guys don't work your 12-month contracts, you do 10 months. And so you have varied schedules in the summer. Maybe you're only, maybe you work 11, but there's 1 month that you're not going to be there. You need to make sure that someone on your team knows who is responsible for the role while you are away, because homelessness doesn't stop, right? A student may come in over the summer and they're in summer school and all of a sudden they're homeless now, right? And so somebody needs to know how to connect that family and that student with the services that they're entitled to even over the summer. Of course, under McKinney-Vento, LEAs that have summer schools or summer programming or activities, these homeless children are entitled to those and should be able to have transportation if needed, even if you're not running the typical yellow school bus. Again, that transportation, if they cannot otherwise participate in these summer activities, must be provided for that student to be able to partake in that. I believe that's all I've got for this. Let's see here. So under McKinney-Vento, liaisons are required to work with community-based organizations, churches, and service clubs. Make sure that you've already got, if you've reached out to a church, reach out to them again and ensure that everything is set up. If they're the ones who are supplying supports and services over the summer to these students, make sure that you have that in a contract and that you are all set up and ready to go so that there is no question about what services the student is going to be getting over the summer. Again, that point of contact, make sure they know which services or which community organizations you have lined up and worked with, so that they are very familiar with what's happening in your homeless program. All right, so we have time now. Please, I know there's just a few of us on the call, but don't hesitate to unmute or drop your comments in the box. I'm just going to ask a couple questions from the field. Does your LEA have an end of the year process that they have in place? And does it need updating or revising? Think about that for yourself. If you have one in place that you think is working really well, feel free to drop it in the chat box or unmute your line. Again, don't be scared to share. Um, Even if you don't share, do you have a process? Do you know your process? Think about that. What do I do for the end of the year? Do I have where I join the state end of the year webinar, and then do I go from there, and do I set up my summer feeding? Do I do this, or do I check all of my records, documents? Do I update my calendar for the fall school year? Like, what is your end of the year process? Do you have one? If not, what can you do to make one? Do you have anything different for your unaccompanied homeless youth or your seniors? How are you supporting them? While they graduate in May, they're still entitled to services until the fall. So if they have summer programs they're coming to, is that an option? Make sure that they are also under in that radar of who you need to be supporting. Do you have specific resources that you want to share? Drop them in the chat box or email them to me. I can gather up frequently asked questions, document, and send that out to everyone. Um, how do you keep your relationships with outside partners or agencies over the summer months? Again, we are required to build our relationships. What are you doing to ensure that that church knows that you're still around, that you're just off for the summer, and that you are still going to need supports come fall? Or maybe over the summer, right? So again, making sure that everyone's aware of who the summer contact person is. And then how are you preparing yourself for the fall? We all know come August, it's going to be crazy. Everyone's going to be coming back to school. And so what is your plan? Do you have something set? Is there a procedure you follow? Does your front office staff again know that they cannot unenroll a student, even if they know 100% with certainty the student is not McKinney-Vento? They do understand they cannot unenroll until you have given the red light or the green light to unenroll that student. Like again, that's going to save a lot of issues down the road if we get that across to our staff on the front end of things. Um, let's see. Again, important reminders. This is in the toolkit that I have for liaisons, looking at your calendars and seeing what you have for May, June, and what you need to be doing. So it's kind of like an outline of things that you need to be doing. You see on the very bottom, homeless immunization report is going to open an e-plan. That would be in May. Making sure you're checking your EIS, your SIS. You're doing your end of the year verifications. Maybe you started in April and falls into May. And then, of course, you got your July things, making sure you're checking your homeless posters rights. We all know we have schools that disregard our homeless posters, and then come the fall, they are gone. And then we come in to do monitoring, and then you're like, I had all these posters up, and someone at the school decided it wasn't an important poster, and they took it down. And so now you're at a federal finding because these posters are not there as they should be. So, reassuring that that information is up to date on your posters, making sure you're looking at your McKinney-Vento toolkit. And then, of course, looking at maybe attending, looking at, go ahead and start planning ahead. Like, are you going to attend the NACCE conference in November, which is November 1st through, I think, the 5th this year? So are you going to be doing that? And then save the date because we are having our McKinney-Vento quarterly call in August the 28th. It's going to be your McKinney-Vento back to school basics. And of course, as it gets closer to time, I will send the new meeting links out and everything for that meeting. But go ahead and mark your calendars now. Again, I know it's going to be super busy come August and September, but hopefully you'll be able to join us. And then, as always, we have resources here to help you with your homeless programming. I did list the summer feeding food services here, as well as department resources, your federal programs data manual, and then your federal resources that are still available to you from NCHE, which is the National Center for Homeless Education, and then USDA is a federal program, so that's listed there. I know I've covered a lot, but do we have any questions? Once you take a look at that slide and talk through some of the from the field questions, if you want to reach out to me like, hey, I don't have this plan in place, could we talk through it? I'm happy to do that. Um, I'll give you just a second or two to think about if you have any questions right now. Again, don't hesitate to reach out to me. You know that anytime you come to any of my meetings, I want feedback on if this was helpful. I understand that surveys are no fun. I also do not like taking them, but it is very important to my work and how I support you guys. So please take just a few minutes to let me know how I can change the slide, maybe update it, maybe add more information to help assist you guys. We have a question. Any word on how McKinney-Vento will be future funded? I know there's lots of questions regarding these federal funds. It's forward facing that the Congress did approve funding for the final budget for FY25. We just don't know how much funding we'll be getting. So right now, we are still on track. We're still obviously open for the McKinney-Vento subgrant. I just can't, if come July 3rd, the day that we're supposed to load funds, I may or may not know how much you're getting, depending on how quickly Congress approves what is going to be awarded to the state of Tennessee. But last I've heard, we're still on track and still going to receive some kind of award. All right, so again, here's my contact information. Here is Randa's information. This is going to be recorded and posted in an e-plan as always. If your surrounding counties weren't able to attend today, please encourage them to take a look at this. We want to spread the word about end of the year and making sure our students are being served and getting the resources and supports that they are entitled to, and that, you know, when you come back in the fall, you're ready to start a new year and get going with your homeless programming. So again, thank you for joining me. I hope everyone has a great rest of the school year. I will be sending stuff out over the summer and the beginning of August with updated meeting links, office hours, anything that you may need to support you through the next school year. So have a great day. Thank you.